In today's class, we are going to discuss regarding one of the common pediatric infectious disease, that is bronchiolitis. It's a viral infection which is usually affecting the smaller airways called bronchioles. So let's see the definition. It's an acute viral infection which has got a maximum effect upon the bronchiolar level. And this disease which will cause inflammation and condition in the smaller airways called bronchioles. The infection usually occurring in the winter as well as the early spring season, and by the age of 3 years, almost all the children have been infected with this disease at least once. Let's see the etiology. It's believed that bronchiolitis is caused by respiratory syncytial virus, and this is a common virus that infects every child by the age of 2 years. And the outbreak of the disease occur every winter. The other viruses are also responsible for causing bronchiolitis. They include influenza virus, parainfluenza virus, coronavirus, adenovirus, rhinovirus, and mycoplasma. Okay, so these all are the major etiological factors, and it is believed that RSV is the major cause for bronchiolitis. Let's see the pathophysiology. In the pathophysiology, I said you already, bronchiolitis is a viral infection where the smaller airways are getting infected or inflamed. So here you can see a comparison of the normal bronchiole as well as the inflamed bronchioles. So in the normal bronchiole, the air passage is more, and whenever there is a bronchiolitis, because of the edema and inflammation, the air passage is very less. So we'll see in detail regarding the pathophysiology. So usually the respiratory syncytial virus, which is affecting the epithelial cells of the respiratory tract, which will be leading to a kind of development of inflammation. So when there is an inflammation, as a part of the inflammation, the bronchiolar mucosa will start to swell, and subsequently it's filled with the mucus as well as the exudate. So these are the end products of the inflammation. So the walls of the bronchi and bronchioles are infiltrated with inflammatory cells, which will be leading to peribronchiolar interstitial pneumonitis. So that is the inflammation. Okay. So what happened? So whenever there is an increased amount of exudates, at the same time inflammatory products, this will be leading to obstruction of the lumen during the time of expiration. Okay, so there will be varying degrees of obstruction, and this will be leading to hyperinflammation of the airways, that is known as obstructive emphysema, and this will also leads to atelectasis. Okay, so here because of the narrowed lumen, during the time of inspiration, more and more air can get inside, but because of the narrowing of this passage, the air is trapped inside. So because of that, during the expiration time, the air cannot come outside. So this will be leading to overinflation of the lung tissue, that is known as emphysema. And later, various clinical manifestations are produced on the basis. Okay, so I think it's clear for you. Next, see regarding the clinical manifestations. So, in the clinical manifestation, the illness usually begins as an upper respiratory tract infection, and the incubation period is 5 to 8 days. So, following 5 to 8 days, usually the symptoms are starting like a upper respiratory tract infection. And usually the child will be present with the symptoms like rhinorrhea and low grade fever, and by the time a cough also will develop. And if the disease progress, it becomes into a lower respiratory tract infection, and which is manifested by other manifestations. So the infants may have several days symptoms, or sometimes they may survive without any symptoms except slight lethargy or poor feeding or irritability. So once the lower airway is involved, the classic manifestations are included. They are altered air exchange, then wheezing will be there. Wheezing is developing because of the air is moving through the small and narrow lumen. Then there will be chest retractions, crackles will be there. The increased respiratory rate, tachypnea, and labored breathing will be there, and diminished breath sounds also develops. Now moving to the diagnostic method, how we can diagnose this disease condition. So this is usually done on the basis of history collection. The history collected from the parents regarding any recent infections or any traveling, etc. And physical examination is usually performed to identify any abnormal breath sounds, chest wall retraction and all, or any labored breathing. Then nasopharyngeal secretion culture or a throat swab is sent to identify the organism. Blood studies also carried out to identify any change in the blood values like increased WBC count, elevated C-reactive protein, etc. And apart from that, an ELISA test is usually done to identify the RSV antigen. At the same time, rapid immunofluorescent antibody direct fluorescent staining, that is DFA, is also carried out in order to identify the RSV antigen. So once the disease is diagnosed, next moving to the therapeutic management. So the disease is treated symptomatically with a cool and humidified oxygen, adequate fluid intake, airway maintenance and medications. So usually most of the children with disease can be managed at home itself, and hospitalization is usually recommended for those children who is having any kind of respiratory distress and those who cannot maintain the nutrition as well as the hydration. So the first line management is to provide humidified oxygen up to 90% and which is measured by a pulse oximetry. Then here, routine chest physiotherapy is not recommended because this can cause atelectasis. Infants with abundant nasal secretions can be given periodic suctioning, and because of the tachypnea, weakness, and fatigue, oral fluids are contraindicated in children. Therefore, IV fluids are preferred until they pass the acute stage of the disease. Coming to the medical management. So here, corticosteroids as well as antihistamines, they don't have any effect upon this disease, hence they are not given. And antibiotics, as I already said you, it's a viral disease. So here antibiotics also no effect. But if any coexisting bacterial infection develops for the child, we need to provide antibiotics. And commonly the drug we give is bronchodilators in order to remove the spasm and narrowing of the lumen of the airway. So here albuterol is the drug of choice usually we provide. And the most common drug of choice is antivirals, that is ribavirin. So this is an antiviral agent for given for the hospitalized children. So this drug is aerosolized and delivered via the aerosol generator, or sometimes it can be administered by the oxygen hood, tent, or through the ventilated tubings. And the average duration is up to 3 days based upon the weight of the child. Okay. Coming to the important aspect, that is nursing care management. So the children admitted to the hospital with the RSV infection may be assigned separate rooms, or they can be treated along with the other RSV infected children. And contact and standard precautions are employed, including hand washing, not touching the nasal mucosa and conjunctiva, and use of gloves and gowns while entering the child's room because it's a highly contagious disease. The another measure is to make the patient assignment so that the nurse who is assigned to a child with RSV are not caring for the other patient, those who are at high risk. At the same time, you can encourage the mother for breastfeeding, and if feedings are contraindicated due to the severity of the illness, the mothers can pump their milk and store for the later use. Okay. Then sometime because of the severity of the illness, the fluid intake may be restricted. So up to 5 to 10 ml of clear fluid can be given to the child, and the nurse has to make sure that it can be given through a medication syringe every 10 minutes to maintain the hydration. Then additional nursing care include monitoring the oxygen level with the pulse oximetry. Okay. So I hope you got an idea regarding bronchiolitis. Thank you.